It's now time for the Pony Cake Sports Podcast with your hosts, Josh Stevens, Tim Thompson, and Tom Schultz. Woo!
Hey there, everybody. We are back with another episode, and as always, I'm here with Tim and Tom. In this episode, we are talking about who you should consider starting in your fantasy football lineups. But before we get to that, guys, how we doing?
Josh, I'm doing fantastic. It's good to be here with you and Tim on a beautiful whatever day it is, talking some football.
I'm excited. Happy that we're getting into the thick of things here in the football season. So I'm pumped.
It's almost over. So
don't say that.
It's getting close already. It's getting close. We're going to first start off with quarterbacks, then obviously go to running back, then wide receiver, and then tight end. So, quarterback, who's your must-start this week?
One of my top guys this week is Mr. Cameron Newton against the Cincinnati Bengals. Right now, only $6K on DraftKings, which is pretty cheap. Eighth most expensive quarterback. Projected 44 points in this football game. What I love about Cam Newton this week, and pretty much every week, is just his rushing ability. His what he's able to do, produce rushing the football, just gives him such a solid floor. You're good for an extra 5 to 6 points just on his rushing alone. And I think that's going to continue this week to beat the Bengals. They're going to have to pass the football, and I like what he did last week. The usage of Christian McCaffrey and Devin Funchess was fantastic. We saw DJ Moore kind of show up a little bit. Hopefully he can continue to make plays, but I'm all in on Cam Newton this week. I think he's a great play in the cash games.
Yeah, with Greg Olsen out, I think they got to do a better job of trying to get DJ Moore more involved with that offense for sure. I do agree with that.
I'm kind of surprised, Tom. I do agree maybe in the cash games, the daily stuff.
That's my focus.
Okay. I mean, that makes a little bit more sense. I think the guy I'm looking forward to rebound quite a bit here. Listen, faced two extremely tough defenses his first 2 weeks. He struggled through injury throughout, and he gets to go to Washington and face a team that's actually played pretty well, but I don't think it's even close. Aaron Rodgers is going to have a big week. This is who I have as my number one fantasy quarterback going into week 3. Gets to go out there, and I think he's just going to absolutely pick them apart. I have 5 touchdowns for Aaron Rodgers this week in a monster game against the Redskins.
5 touchdowns?
5 touchdowns, yes, sir.
I did have Cam Newton as mine, but luckily I had a backup as well.
Sorry, Josh.
Oh, it's all good.
Great minds think alike, though.
My backup
You're probably going to take my number 2 guy, right?
is going to be Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Okay. Nope.
So, Ryan Fitzpatrick against the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're home against the Steelers. This might actually be a low-scoring game, but you know what? Ryan Fitzpatrick is coming off the back-to-back 400-yard games. This last game that he had was 4 touchdowns. Ryan Fitzpatrick, who knows? Ride it. See if it plus it's a Monday night game. I don't fault you if you're going to ride it with Ryan Fitzpatrick at all. It's a hot waiver wire pickup. Whatever. I don't fault you for starting a guy that has thrown back-to-back 400 yards and 4 touchdowns this past week.
What's crazy about Fitzmagic is this is the best ever start to a fantasy football season. He's got the most quarterback points ever in all of fantasy football history at the quarterback spot the first 2 weeks. Question with him is he going to continue it? This should be a good matchup. The Steelers have been getting torched. They got absolutely picked apart last week by the Kansas City Chiefs, and I absolutely love the weapons Tampa Bay has. So I get this pick, and he should be pretty much in most people's top 10 QB list this week, Josh.
What is Fitzpatrick? What is his dollar?
I could look it up. I don't have it in front of me right now.
It's a good question, Josh.
Yeah, it's very interesting on where it's going to be. But all right, let's go ahead and move on to. Or did you guys have another quarterback or no?
I got one more quarterback.
Who's your other quarterback?
My other one's Matty Ice, Matt Ryan. He's facing New Orleans Saints. This one's mainly just about value. DraftKings right now, $5,700. Pretty cheap, a little bit cheaper than Cam Newton. But in this game, they're playing the Saints. These games are normally shootouts. Vegas is projecting 53 points in this matchup. And when you can get this type of value at the quarterback position in a game that's supposed to score that many points, sometimes you got to go with it, especially in cash games where value is pretty much king. I think he's a solid play this week. Hopefully he can get more efficient in the red zone. Last week kind of blew up but had 2 rushing touchdowns. Don't expect that.
Yeah.
But as long as he could put up 20 points, he's worth that dollar amount right now.
Tom, I like that play. The guy that I'm going to go with who should be pretty cheap as well this week, Jimmy Garoppolo against Kansas City.
Yeah.
I think it's a guarantee to have 3 touchdowns. The Kansas City defense is bad, and if the Kansas City Chiefs continue to put up as many points as they have over these last few weeks, he's going to have to be throwing the ball. So I'll take Jimmy G all day.
Ryan Fitzpatrick right now is $6,000, so same price as Cam Newton for DraftKings wise. So not too bad of a value there, where you have some of the top quarterbacks going at $7,000, $69 for Tom Brady, and a couple others. One other quarterback that I do kind of like, call me crazy, I like Blake Bortles this week against the Tennessee Titans. Titans are trash. They're awful. Blake Bortles is coming off of a big game this past week against the Patriots. What kind of Blake Bortles are we going to see? Who knows? But Blake Bortles is I kind of want to say a boomer or bust type pick. But if you have a quarterback that I am going to say for our sits, you could possibly be thinking about starting Blake Bortles over that quarterback. So listen to our sit episode, or temper those expectations episode, to hear who I'm going to say that you guys should sit and possibly start Blake Bortles over them. I think it'll be a little bit of a shocker. Let's move on to running back, boys.
My first guy is going to be Tevin Coleman versus the New Orleans Saints. Devonta Freeman should be out once again, and Coleman right now is $6,400 on DraftKings. That is ridiculously cheap for a guy who's going to get over 20 plus touches. Brought it up with Matt Ryan. How many projected points in this game? Give me a running back who should get 20 to 25 touches, and that's what's key in fantasy football for under 7K. That's tremendous value. Hopefully he can find the end zone this week, add a couple more catches in, and he could have a monster game. I think majority of lineups will have him. So if you're playing cash games on DraftKings this week, just put him in your lineup, set it, and forget it.
Ezekiel Elliott blows up against the Seahawks. I believe I mentioned it in the previous episode that I think it's going to be a big game. A game that Zeke owners have been waiting for a while. Like one of those 2 touchdowns, 150 plus yards type rushing games. So give me Ezekiel Elliott. I know it's not necessarily a tough pick to make, but that's my guy.
Christian McCaffrey for me, he's right at that 7,000 mark, where you have like an Alvin Kamara at 9,000. A couple other running backs that are in that price range as well. But Christian McCaffrey, I think he, regardless of the low amount of carries that he's going to get, which I'm fine with, he's making up for in the receiving department. Week 1 against the Dallas Cowboys, 6 receptions for 45 yards. Week 2, a lowly 14 receptions for 102 yards. Christian McCaffrey is a must start in all PPR formats. And if you're playing DraftKings, by all means, please consider him. He's at 7,800 right now, the 3rd highest running back dollar-wise, but still really worth putting the money out there for him.
I'm up again. My next guy is Jordan Howard versus the Arizona Cardinals. The Bears, it is a road game, which normally isn't great for running backs, but right now they're 6-point favorites on the road. That's a pretty big number. We kind of saw them. In some ways, I'm happy how the Bears are using Howard. They're involving him more in the receiving game, which is huge. DraftKings, $6,500, full point PPR, so those catches mean a lot. I expect the game flow to be heavily in the Bears' favor in this game. They should be up. Arizona's not projected to score a lot of points. That defense should be able to get after the Cardinals, so positive game script should be there. Hopefully Howard finally finds the end zone. If he does, he's completely worth that $6,500 right now, and he's one of the biggest steals right now in my eyes.
I agree. That's actually who I was going to go with, but like you say, you have to go with the next guy up. My guy's someone who everyone hates to put any money on him. I don't want to do this, but if I'm going to throw another name out there, the Giants have not been great. Give me Lamar Miller. Let's see what Lamar Miller can do with Houston. He's getting close to that 100-yard mark. It just, can he get in the end zone? That's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Can he get in the end zone? If he gets in the end zone, he's pushing that top 15 back type numbers. So give me Lamar Miller this week because he should probably be real cheap, I'm assuming, in daily.
One other running back that I do like quite a bit is Kenyon Drake. Kind of talked about him a little bit in our prediction episode for week number 3. Playing the Oakland Raiders. The Oakland Raiders gave up 160 yards rushing to running backs, wide receivers, and quarterbacks last week with the Denver Broncos. Also 2 touchdowns between running backs and Case Keenum. And then the week before, we know that they have Todd Gurley running the ball for the Rams, but still over 100 yards rushing for Todd Gurley, and then receiving 39 in the touchdown. We do know that Frank Gore is there as well, but I really like Kenyon Drake this week, and in daily fantasy, $5,600 on DraftKings.
Not bad.
So I like that value quite a bit. Moving on to wide receiver, boys.
My first guy, he's pairing up with one of my quarterbacks. It's a nice little stack, a pretty cheap stack. Devin Funchess against the Bengals. $5K right now on DraftKings. And what I love about Devin Funchess is when Greg Olsen is out, he is the number 1 receiving threat besides Christian McCaffrey. But last week he had 9 targets. That's huge. I expect that number to go up this week. I expect him to be somewhere between the 9 and 12 pretty much on a weekly basis. So I think this $5K right now is super cheap, and it's going to continue to go up. But put him in your lineup this week to save some extra coins so you can draft those Todd Gurleys, those Alvin Kamaras. But Funchess, killer value this week.
I'm sure he's high and higher than some people may believe he should be. But this week, in a shootout type of game, give me Juju Smith-Schuster once again. He has just been phenomenal in that offense. With Le'Veon Bell being gone, he's the guy who's benefited most, in my opinion. I know they're on the road. I know Big Ben doesn't normally play as well. But with how well Tampa Bay's been playing, I can only assume it's going to mean big-time passing attempts on Monday Night Football. So look for Juju to have, I know he had like 150 yards, I think, or 110 yards, I think, last week, and a touchdown. Very similar numbers this week.
Averaging 27 DraftKings points a week right now. He's 7,200, so pretty cheap. Definitely affordable.
Yeah, that's crazy. The wide receiver, one of the wide receivers I do like a lot this week, Emmanuel Sanders against the Baltimore Ravens. I really think that the Denver running backs are going to struggle this week against the Baltimore front 7, so I really like Emmanuel Sanders this week to kind of make up for it. If you're looking at him in daily fantasy, he's at $6,400, which is actually pretty decent right there. Plus, you also got to remember the Ravens this past week just gave up 4 receiving touchdowns to wide receivers. Obviously, 3 of them to A.J. Green and 1 to Tyler Boyd.
Yeah, Emmanuel Sanders, he's been so reliable this year. Week 1, he had 10 receptions on 11 targets. Week 2, only 4 on 4 targets, but he still had 96 yards.
Exactly.
That's fantastic. You got to love the relationship that him and Case Keenum have going right now. My second receiver is going to be T.Y. Hilton versus the Eagles. Right now, 6,700 on DraftKings. What I like the most about T.Y. Hilton, and I'm kind of surprised and extremely happy about it. Just back-to-back games, 11 targets, which is good. That's what you want to see. You want to see those double-digit targets. If he continues that, he'll have over 170 on the year. But then back-to-back games with a touchdown. That does not happen much with T.Y. He's averaged like 5.5 touchdowns a year, so you have to like the creative play calling that Frank Reich and Andrew Luck have been drawing up, and Nick Sirianni. So I think the more that they are using him in the red zone is just going to make T.Y. Hilton a more valuable option. I think this game has a chance to be a shootout. The Eagles have a couple guys out right now, and I just am all in on T.Y. Hilton right now and how Frank Reich is using him in that system.
I like that. The other guy that I'm going to go with is one Chris Hogan. I think the Patriots are going to go into Detroit, like we mentioned. Hate being there, be pissed off. They were pretty much embarrassed by Blake Bortles, who is barely a third-string high school quarterback. And Tom Brady's going to go out there and just put on a show. It's going to be able to do what I think. Listen, Sam Darnold's able to do it, and Jimmy G showed that he can do it. This is the best quarterback the Lions has faced by far, and I think the Lions are about to get embarrassed at home.
If you're stacking heavy early with like running back and your wide receivers, and you're like, I need a kind of a quick guy to throw in there and hope for the best, I like D.D. Westbrook this week against the Tennessee Titans. I already mentioned Blake Bortles. D.D. Westbrook I like for the fact that he is only $4,600. I thought he would have been a little bit higher than that, so it was kind of shocking. But yeah, I kind of like that value, especially if you're looking at somebody like a Keelan Cole, who is $5,600. Mm-hmm. So that's just me. Moving on, tight end.
Tight ends, it's pretty ugly right now, man. You got those on DraftKings right now, and even on FanDuel, really aren't that many good values. The top three are definitely a lot more expensive, but even like the George Kittle got raised up in prices, even though he had a terrible week last week. The best value I'm finding right now is Trey Burton.
I was going to say the same thing.
He's under $4K, but besides that, no one has good value. So you're either paying up or just kind of completely lowballing it.
I think there's one more. Similar, right on the same level almost as a Trey Burton. Maybe even two more. But I'm going to go with a Jared Cook.
Yeah, I like that as well.
Jared Cook against Miami. You know, the Miami defense has been good, but the Oakland offense at times has looked halfway decent. So I'm interested to see Jared Cook. It seems like Gruden wants to continue to, make him a part of that offense. I'd take him cheap.
Kyle Rudolph as well against the Buffalo Bills. Minnesota's at home. $4,100 in daily. But Kyle Rudolph against Buffalo, I really like that matchup overall. Kyle Rudolph, I believe, had around 70 yards receiving last week. I can see that trend continuing up. Week 1, he did have a touchdown. So I do like Kyle Rudolph as well. And if there's another tight end, David Njoku for the Cleveland Browns against the Jets. I know the Jets' defense has been pretty much lights out against tight ends so far this year with the two weeks, but we don't know how or if Jarvis Landry is going to be at full strength. They haven't been running the ball as much. Duke Johnson hasn't been involved in the passing game. Josh Gordon is now gone. Are they going to rely on Antonio Callaway? Is Rashard Higgins going to be the de facto number 2 guy? Is it going to be David Njoku? Could be worth throwing a dart at.
Don't forget about Tom's guy, Eric Ebron.
Yeah,
he scored a touchdown last week.
Week 1 too.
Yeah. He's got 2. The only issue I have with Ebron is snap count's super low.
Yep.
But they've kind of just been using him on completely designed plays. He needs to stop making boneheaded decisions. He's been the third most
penalized.
He's second most penalized tight end, but he's had the third most snaps on that team at the tight end spot.
Yikes.
But
anything else, guys? Any defenses?
I like the Cowboys. They're kind of lower on the totem pole. The Browns as well. They play Thursday. I think them again, that front four against the rookie quarterback I like.
Would you spend $3,500 on the Bears against the Cardinals?
Cash game possibly, but that's a lot. I normally try to get the bargain basement defense.
I would look at, and again, I don't know the prices. I don't have it in front of me, but cheap. I'm assuming the Green Bay Packers are pretty cheap. Green Bay, I know they gave up a lot to Cousins, but Cousins played well, and it wasn't really as, it looked good on fantasy, but watching that game, you didn't really think Cousins was having a monster game until the very end when, he was making that push. The defense played well. Alex Smith is bad. Don't expect Adrian Peterson to do big things, and I do still love their young secondary. So give me the Green Bay Packers defense, I think, is a valuable defense to look at.
Packers are at 2,600. I like the Dolphins defense this week. I'm all on the Dolphins this week.
Dolphins.
All right, boys. Anything else?
That's all I got, Joshy.
That's it, homeboy.
All right, guys. That is our must-start players of the week. Be on the lookout for our sit or AKA temper those expectations. And that episode will be dropping a little bit later in the week. But for Tim and Tom and myself, we are Pony Keg Sports. You guys can follow us on Twitter at Pony Keg Sports, at Pony_Keg_Tom, and at Fight Talk Tim. Email us ponykegsports@gmail.com. And until next time.
Peace.